Story 1. I manipulated my current friend group into existence. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy. Thanks. When I was 15, I had a lot of self-doubt and I often felt isolated. It was always obvious that I was an afterthought, despite the fact that I did have friends, and those friends were nice. They would frequently refer to the five of us as the four of us, even though there were actually five of us. They had a lot of inside jokes that I wasn't a part of, etc. Sometimes they would include me at the last minute for things that they had planned in advance. They were always very nice to me, and I never had the feeling that they were being mean to me behind my back, but it always seemed as though they had to make an effort to remember that I was there. Do not get me wrong, I do not mean to imply that. I finally got sick of being by myself and made the decision to go out and find some friends on my own. At first, I got in touch with one of my longtime friends. We shared quite a few of the same interests and personalities, and he gave off the impression that he was somewhat lonely, so I figured, why not? It took us close to a year to become good friends, but once we did, we really hit it off, and I'd now consider him to be my current best friend. When I look back, it's kind of strange that things even worked out the way they did because, according to the old messages I read, I was almost harassing him. After a while, the fact that I had him wasn't enough to make me happy anymore. I liked my friend, but I longed to have a larger circle of friends with whom I could feel comfortable. This marked the beginning of one of the most peculiar phases of my life, which consisted primarily of me recruiting people in the most peculiar of ways. The first one was a former classmate of mine from when I was in elementary school. After following him on various social media platforms, I realized that we had developed tastes in music and clothing that were strikingly similar to one another. I wanted an excuse to get together with him, so I sent him a message asking if he would be willing to be interviewed for a school project concerning the environment in the classrooms where I had previously taught. What's the catch? I invented the entire project from scratch. It wasn't even real. During the so-called interview, I gave him some hints about things I knew he liked, and then we moved on from there. I have never told him that it was a fake interview, and to the best of his knowledge, he believes that it is accurate even to this day. The second person was a student at my school who frequently chose to sit by themselves. After stumbling across his art account, in which he frequently drew characters from television shows that I enjoyed, I felt compelled to strike up a friendship with him. I did not initiate conversation with him as a typical person would, but rather I set up circumstances in which I would accidentally have a reason to engage in conversation with him. However, in the end everything turned out okay. The next one was also someone from my school, and she is someone who I surprisingly just happened to meet pretty normally. We immediately hit it off despite the fact that she was a new student in the class. The most recent one was a girl who worked at the part-time job I had. The problem was that I had to work every Saturday and sometimes during the breaks, and I had no idea what her schedule was. In the meantime, I was clueless. So, what did I get up to when I was 16? I approached my boss with a casual request to change my schedule so that it would coincide with hers. It was a terrible situation. Put me to work on a variety of Tuesdays in the afternoon after school. In retrospect, he most likely believed that I had a crush on her and that he should help me out of it. However, I am still surprised that he did not find my request strange. I then proposed that we meet up outside of work on occasion, and everything went off without a hitch. From that point on, I methodically introduced each person to the other members of the group one at a time, and eventually, the group started to take shape. These individuals are among the most wonderful things that have ever occurred in my life, and I love them with every ounce of my being. They are the most loving, supportive, awesome, and hilarious group of friends I've ever had. They are also the funniest. Since I kind of tricked the majority of them, I unfortunately still have some lingering guilt about it. When one of them says something like, "Isn't it crazy that we all ended up together?" That's when it really hits me hard, because I'm pretty sure it's not just a coincidence. But I can't simply respond like this. In point of fact, I stalked, harassed, set up fake interviews for, and otherwise manipulated you all into becoming my friends. Oh, I almost forgot to mention that I made literal mind maps on how to introduce all of you to each other in order to increase the likelihood of forming this group. On other occasions, I get the impression that I give myself too much credit, especially considering that if they didn't vibe with each other, this group never would have come into existence. I could try to impose my will on it as much as I want, but in order for it to be successful, they need to have genuine feelings for one another. Whatever the case may be, the feeling of guilt that I have consumes me, and despite the fact that this occurred approximately 6 to 7 years ago, I wish I had taken a different approach to the situation. Story 2. My fiance claims her sister saw trauma as her own. Is this a sign of being a bad person? We've been together for a year, and she's 35 years old. Her paternal grandfather is a 5-time widower. In 1980, the couple welcomed twins, a boy and a girl, into their family through their first marriage. After he fathered a child by another woman, his first wife filed for divorce after he fathered a child by a younger woman in 1987. Their mother was awarded custody of the twins, but their father was allowed to visit them every weekend for an overnight stay. He was responsible for the care of his firstborn daughter from the ages of 2 until she turned 18. My future husband is the product of an affair that his father had during his first marriage with a younger woman, her mother, who was 18 at the time, and he was born in 1987. Her mother stayed married to him for a total of 10 years before finally divorcing him. She was given lavish gifts, called pretty, princess, and angel, while her older sister was called fat and other derogatory names, and she was fiercely defensive of her father. My fiance was the golden child. She was pitted against the firstborn daughter. She was given lavish gifts. When her older sister would act out as a result of the abuse, my fiance's sister would accuse her of being an ungrateful brat, and my fiance's sister would defend their father. My fiance's family spoiled her for her 16th birthday by buying her a car, taking her on vacation to the Bahamas and Mexico, and giving her limo rides for her birthday. When my fiance was 10 years old, his mother divorced his father and married someone else. Her father tied the knot for the 3rd time, had another divorce, and then tied the knot for the 4th time in 1996. This woman was the mother of his daughter. The same pattern occurred with Saw between the ages of 2 and 18, as it had with his firstborn daughter. Once more, he sided his youngest daughter against his middle daughter, who happens to be my fiancée. My future husband would yell at her, refer to her as an ungrateful brat, and tell her to show respect for their father. She would pick on her younger sister whenever she displayed bad behavior. In 2019, my future wife flirted that her father had abused both of her sisters, and that both of them came forward with the same account of what had happened. During those 5 months, she had no contact with her dad. On the other hand, as soon as her birthday came around in the year 2020 and he posted on Facebook about how she was his princess and favorite daughter, she thanked him for the post. Additionally, on her birthday, she acknowledged and accepted money and gifts from him. Therefore, the duration of her silence was rather short. Whenever we get into an argument, she will now cite Saw as an explanation for why she behaves inappropriately. Even though it never happened to her and she lived with her mother, she claims to have post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD) and trauma from them being sawed. She also strangely plays into the trope of the strong woman who survived Saw, which is not a trope for real victims but has become ingrained in her identity. This is despite the fact that the trope does not exist. She claims that she can relate to the characters in the film Girl Interrupted, and she frequently posts statements on Facebook along the lines of "I used to wrestle with my demons, but now we cuddle, and I've spent my whole life struggling and surviving, but now it's my time to live." To restate, she was the perfect child, the blame always fell on her sisters, and she was in no way subjected to any form of physical or emotional mistreatment. She went so far as to reveal to me that her younger sister, who was born in 1997, had confided in her about the fact that their father had physically abused her while my fiancé was attending college. My fiancé didn't try to intervene or help her sister, and she told me it was none of my business. I loved my dad and figured she was just being a brat. I wasn't going to condemn my dad. She didn't try to help her sister because she loved her father. Story 3. Am I the jerk for telling my brother he's a horrible dad? My brother and his wife have 3 children, ages 10, 7, and 5 years old. In addition, his current wife has a son from a previous marriage who is 16 years old. Addie is my brother's second daughter. She is the product of a previous relationship 12. After CPS removed Addie from her mother's home when she was 8 years old, my brother had never met or spoken to Addie until she was forced to move in with us. As soon as she arrived, we found out that she had a severe phobia of men and that she was not going to do well living with her father because of this. I am a single mother with 1 daughter, and because my brother's house is only a 5-minute walk from where we live, I offered to take Addie until she became more comfortable being around her father and his family. I bought her the most inexpensive phone I could find when she moved in with them, and I told her that she is welcome to visit whenever she likes, as long as she gives me a call first so that I can arrange to pick her up Addie's refusal to refer to them as mom and dad is one of the things that has always driven my brother and my sister-in-law crazy. Since the first time she met them, she has referred to them as Mr. and Mrs. last name. Even though the therapist had repeatedly warned them not to coerce her into doing it, her parents continued to strongly encourage her to do it. Because of this, Addie began to experience unease when she was at her own residence, so she began spending more time at my place. Over the course of the past 3.5 years, we have spent at least 3 nights at a time at my residence. Now that I think about it, I think my brother and his wife began to view her more as their sister than as their own child. They would all go to the beach, but they would say that they forgot to invite Addie because she wasn't here. Or they would choose family activities that they knew she wouldn't enjoy, so that she would come back to me. Cats have become one of Addie's greatest concerns in recent years. She is unable to be in the same room as a cat under any circumstances, and no amount of counseling has been able to help her overcome this irrational fear. To tell you the truth, I believe that her father forgot about her phobia in the same way that he forgot to invite her to go out the other day, and when they returned home, they had a kitten. Addie went home to spend the night without being informed about the new kitten in the house. She got up in the middle of the night to use the restroom, and while she was there, she noticed the kitten. She started screaming, which woke everyone up, frightened the kitten, which caused it to run out of the bathroom, and caused her father to become angry with her. At 12:30 in the morning, he began to yell at her, and she immediately bolted out the front door. No one had the presence of mind to try to stop her or even look in her direction. She hurried to my residence, awoke me, and informed me of everything that had occurred. I stayed up with her all night because I couldn't get her to settle down despite my best efforts. That morning, she finally fell asleep, at which point I asked my daughter to watch her while I went to visit my brother at his home. I yelled at him and his wife, called them terrible parents, and explained that this is the reason why Addie still won't refer to them as her mother and father for years later. They have not spoken to me and have slammed the door in my face. They have also refused to talk to me and have sent Addie a text message telling her that she must choose between us. Over the past few days, she has been such a nervous breakdown that I am unable to leave her alone in the house. I have a terrible feeling, and now I'm wondering if I was the one who was the jerk by yelling at them.